about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love.
Okay, in this episode of Brenda, the mystery at Carlsbad Tavern, I'm going to be talking to Bonnie. Now, Bonnie was Brenda's best friend. It's always good to talk to somebody outside the family, such as a best friend. They're going to know things differently than a child, a parent. Or siblings, for that matter, as we talked to Iris. There's going to be some good insight that Bonnie can offer us. Now, with that, Bonnie, too, will be protective of Brenda. That's the nature. That's how things work. And I might have to coax some answers out of her to get to the truth because of that. And that's normal and it's okay. I understand it. But you want to also talk to coworkers, people that maybe went to school with them. Everybody will give you a different perspective. Think of it as like putting different ingredients into a blender and then blending it all up, and you get the whole encompassing flavor of everything that you put in there. It's not just going to be the taste of the banana. It's not going to just be the taste of the blueberry. It's all of it then at the end, that you have a smorgasbord of information that paints you a picture of who Brenda Condon is. And again, we're learning victimology here. We're learning who Brenda is. And as I stated before, it's not a sexy episode. You know, they want to see action. You know, they want to see suspects. But this is important. And I have to know who Brenda is. I have to try to make sense of what I know so far. And that is Brenda leaving that bar sometime after 1 a.m. with her coat, with her purse, but yet her car's still there. The bar's unlocked. I have to try to make sense of that. You can't just say, well, that's just the way it is. No, there's a reason. Now, what is that reason? Is it because she was lured outside for something? Getting into a car with somebody to do something? All of that you're going to learn from her victimology. Somebody will say, hey, there's no way that she would do that. Some will say, yeah, we got to figure out which one it is. Why? Why are the boots in the bathroom? Okay, is there a simple explanation like Todd had said? Or is it something more nefarious than that? Victimology will tell us that. Okay, it's not foolproof. Nobody knows what was going inside Brenda's head at 1 o'clock in the morning. But we can try. And that's what we're going to do by talking to Bonnie. So watch this episode. Bonnie, Brenda's best friend. And let's see what we can learn about Brenda. And specifically, the week that she went missing in February 1991. From Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. Carlsbad Tavern. Here we go.
Hello?
Hello, is this Bonnie?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Bonnie. It's kenmains. How are you?
Hi, pretty good.
Good. I'm glad I caught you at 10:30 exactly. I hope you didn't wait around for me.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Hey, I understand you know what I'm doing here, looking into, obviously, the disappearance of your friend, Brenda. And I just got some questions. I want to let you know that I'll be recording this. I record all my interviews, if that's okay with you.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Just want to talk a little bit. I want to get to know Brenda a little bit. Obviously, I never met her. I've talked to Todd, her son, and Iris, her sister, and her sister-in-law, Pam. But that's just giving me little insights as to who she is. But I think sometimes you really need to talk to her friends. And from everyone that I spoke with, They said you are the friend to speak to, so hence my call to you.
Yeah.
So what can you tell me about Brenda?
Well, I guess in one word, which I'm sure with all your investigation, she was a loyal person to everyone.
Okay.
She tried to do everything she could for her kids, so and she was just a good person.
Okay. Let's go back to the beginning and tell me how you met her.
We went to Bible school together.
Okay.
We lived a mile apart from each other. And the first time I met her was like at Bible school when we were 5.
Oh, okay. And you were friends with her?
We went all through school together.
Okay.
We were neighbors. We walked to each other's house, or our parents, took us back and forth. Our summers we spent together swimming, and riding bikes. And, we were together all the time.
Okay. And you were friends with her all the way up until that day on February 26, 1991?
Yes.
Okay. And were you living in Pennsylvania at that time?
Yes, I was. I was living in Clearfield.
Okay. And I understand that you guys, kids grew up together as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. After we... She had got married first. We got married young. I was in her wedding and everything. I was there when both her kids were born.
Okay.
I was there whenever her and Tom first got together. It just... We were always in touch. Maybe we'd go sometimes, through over the years where we didn't speak to each other all the time.
Sure.
But it's just one of those friendships where, as soon as you saw each other, it was just like it was the same as it was.
Tell me about that first, that husband that you had mentioned, her marriage to Tom. What was he like and how did they get along?
Well, in the beginning, they were inseparable.
Okay.
It was just like once they met each other, there was a lot of conflict. He was older.
Okay.
Her family didn't like the situation. And, he was an older guy, had been married before and everything, and there was a lot of conflict there. But then they got together and, she moved in with him right away, and then Todd come along, and Tom was, he didn't want Brenda ever to go out of the home and work. That wasn't how he saw things. He wanted her to stay home and be a mother and, whatnot. Well, then it got to the place where he didn't have work. So Brenda, being the person she was, like, well, I'm not sitting here. I'm going to work,
Right.
And she cleaned houses. She worked anywhere she could. She worked for her sister. She worked for, she worked at a hardware store. Hard work,
Yeah.
She was a labor person, and she'd do anything, and she could do anything. She was no bigger than a minute, but, she was a hard worker. So that started the conflict, I think, in their marriage.
Okay, so...
where he didn't like her being out there, And she was a good-looking girl. She was friendly. She was flirty. Everybody loved her, Okay. And that's whenever things got, kind of back and forth with them. And... but she never left. She stuck it out. She stayed there. But whenever she got the opportunity to start this business, that's when she said, I can't stay here because he's dragging me down,
Okay. When you say that there was conflict, could that conflict be physical at all?
I don't ever remember him being too physical, being physical with her.
She would
I
tell
think it was more verbal.
And she would tell you this, obviously. You're her best friend, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She was the type, she'd leave.
If
it was getting to that point, she'd just get out of the house.
Okay.
I mean, Tom walked around with a pistol on his hip.
Okay.
He slept with it. You didn't mess with him.
Was he
Was
he paranoid, or is that just the way he was?
It's just the way he was. He never come off as paranoid to me. Like, I always liked Tom. And even, whenever they had their problems, Brenda understood that Tom was my friend too,
Right.
But he, people knew how he was. Like, don't come on my property. He was that kind of person.
Sure.
How
about any drug use in the relationship there, with Tom and Brenda? Were they that type of people at that point in time where
they smoked weed?
Okay, nothing harder that you know?
Tom always did. Brenda off and on, But yeah, that was never hidden either.
Okay.
They smoked around, like, I don't know, back then it wasn't like it is now.
Sure.
But, well, it's coming to that again, I guess. But, their kids knew they smoked weed. It wasn't hidden.
Okay. Nothing harder that you know about?
Not that I ever saw.
Okay.
Okay, the reason I'm pausing it here after that drug question is because you could probably hear the hesitation in Bonnie's voice, much like I did. Not at that time, which means there's got to be drug use that's harder coming up, or at least she has an inclination that there may be a harder drug that's coming into play here.
And a quick question before I forget and we move on. When this happened, did the police talk to you?
Oh, yeah.
They did? Okay.
Yeah.
Good there. So Brenda's relationship kind of crumbles with Tom, and I assume that's when they lived up in Clearfield Way?
Yes.
And then Brenda moves down to Williamsport to start the cleaning service?
Yeah. And that was kind of, I didn't really understand why she moved to Williamsport. Like, I know she was trying to start a business down there, but her main business was in State College.
Okay.
And I questioned her when she said she was moving down there, and she's like, oh, well, I could just get a cheaper place and this and that. I never went there. I had been working with her previously to that, but I had told her, I said, well, I can't help you with that. It's too far away.
So
I had kids, and I was, living on my own at that time. I was divorced. I didn't have a good car. Like, I couldn't help her with that part of it.
Okay. But you helped her clean when she was cleaning houses and businesses?
When she first started her business in State College, I was all in with her. We wanted to do it as a partnership, but I didn't have the money.
Right.
And really all I could do was just help her, like, when she'd go to meet people,
Sure.
I'd go with her, and then, when we clean, we'd go in and we'd clean 2 or 3 houses in a day.
Okay, so
but she was still living with Tom then, because she'd come pick me up in Clearfield, and then we'd head to State College.
Okay.
And we'd be there all day cleaning. And yeah, Tom, he questioned her where we were, what we were doing, why we were getting home so late. And we were working. We were working our butts off.
Okay, so this is a little bit of a red flag to me. You know, possessive, jealous. She didn't say those words. But when a man's questioning a woman about where they are, what they're doing, why they're coming home late, there's some insecurities in that relationship. So I have to delve into this a little bit further. Or maybe it's just the way Tom was. Let's find out.
Okay, so she moves down to Williamsport area. So it's around this time, I guess, that she's going to meet Greg. Is that correct?
She met Greg before that.
Okay. So she
because when we were working in this, when she first got her van for work. Wasn't right when we first started, but she started parking her van at his gas station.
Okay.
The guy that was helping her with the business, which I cannot remember his name. I want to say Brad, but I know Iris has that information.
Okay.
Like who she was actually, who was backing her and getting her started. And he's the one that got the van. It was just a small van that we could, it was all set up with the cleaning supplies and everything. And she started parking her van at Greg's gas station because, not putting the miles on it coming from Clearfield or from Williamsport.
So she somehow knows Greg why she's with Tom?
Okay. It's obvious why I'm stopping and asking this question. Because did she cheat on Tom with Greg? It's a natural progression to go from an unhappy relationship to another relationship when you're not completely done with the first relationship. But that gives me an indication of Brenda and knowing her and what she is about, what her character is. And was there any conflict there? Was Tom jealous that Brenda was now with Greg? That's why I ask.
Yeah, I think, Tom is still in the picture.
Okay. All right. So
they might have been divorced by them, but I don't think they were.
Okay. How does the relationship with Greg develop?
Well, I think just from going in there, and getting her van, and like I said, Brenda was a friendly person. She talked to everybody, and he was there all the time. He ran that gas station. He was there all the time. But as far as her actual relationship with him, like, their first date or anything, she never talked about that to me. Like, she never took me there. Like, I think I was at that gas station one time.
Okay, this is another red flag for me here. This is the second person who is close to Brenda. First one being her sister Iris. Now Bonnie, telling me that Brenda is keeping Greg away from them. There's got to be a reason for this. It's a new relationship. She should be happy. She should be sharing this new boyfriend and the information that she's living with him and all this change in her life, but yet she's not sharing that with her family or friends. This is very odd to me, and this is a big red flag to me. What is Brenda keeping from them? Is she embarrassed of Greg? Is there something going on with Greg that nobody knows about? Well, let's find out.
She introduced me to him, and right from the start, I was like, "What does she see in him? Not her type at all." To me, he was an old, weird-looking guy. Because Brenda, she is a good-looking girl.
Yeah.
She could have anybody she wanted.
So it
didn't even have to try.
It progresses to a point, obviously, where she moves in with him at State College, right?
Yep.
And what was your thoughts on that?
I thought she was crazy. Because one of the things was I didn't know hardly anything about him, and she didn't talk about him. So that kind of made me think, that's kind of weird, Well, he was a private person, she told me. But like he was known over there. He was known in the public. I can remember one time she told me that he had an old car and he did those, they used to have those
cruises
and everything. And he was big into that, and like, I knew he had money, there was money involved there. And I do remember her telling me that his mother and them didn't accept her. She was trash to them. So I knew that he was, a little out of her league, to say. But, to me, he was just, I don't know.
Right.
Nobody I wanted to get to know,
Right.
It wasn't. And, when she called me and he'd be there, she didn't talk the same.
Okay.
She'd talk around things.
Right.
So I never really got to know him until after the fact.
Okay.
Well, then whenever we started trying to figure out what had happened, then I started learning a lot about Mr. Greg.
Sure. Well, let's go to that. Let's go to the night she disappeared. When was the last time you had talked to her before that?
Let me look here for sure.
You have notes and stuff written down?
I do. I don't have, like, they're kind of scattered, so I tried to organize them, and I tried to, have things a little more precise, but my memory isn't what it used to be either.
That's okay. You don't have to search for that.
Yeah.
We can get back to it, but tell me what you feel.
Well, I do know one thing I did want to tell you.
Yes.
The whole thing about her working at that bar. She had called me. She told me what she was going to do because she said, I need some extra cash. And she said, I wanted to know if you'd be interested in working with me at this bar. And I'm like, what bar? And she said, told me Carlsbad Tavern. Da, da, da. I said, Brenda, it's winter time. How am I going to get down there at night? Like, I don't have a good car. Traveling that far by myself, it just wasn't in my, I have 2 kids. I couldn't do that. And she said, well, it would be worth your while. And she says, well, just come down and see the place. So I had just started dating a guy who actually was going to school at Penn State. So he said, I know that place. His brother lived down there somewhere. And he said, I don't know. It's pretty shady. He said, well, we'll go down. There was a band playing, and it was known for that. And all I can remember about that night is we had a good time dancing. She seemed to know a lot of people, Some people she steered clear of. Greg was not there. He was nowhere, he wasn't there at all, and I thought that was weird. And whenever we went to leave, her car was in State College. We were going to take her back to State College. We went out, got in the car, and all of a sudden this big black car pulls up beside us. And this guy gets out and points at her and like, come on. And I'm like, well, that's not Greg. And she goes, no, that's Mario. That's Greg's brother. I'm like, oh. She goes, hold on a minute. And she got out of the car. And then she says, I'm going to go with them. And I'm like, what? And she said, yeah, they'll take me back to my car. I'm going with them. And there was like 3 guys in a car, and she left with them.
Okay. Well, this is not so much a red flag, but it is very interesting. Again, it tells you why victimology is so important. That tells me that Brenda is not afraid to go somewhere with 1, 2, 3 guys. Now, maybe she knew all 3. She certainly seems like she knew one of them. But she leaves her best friend and gets in a car with 3 guys at, 2 in the morning? Now, that's something that just, it intrigues me. It tells me a little bit more something about Brenda. And we can relate that to maybe February 26th, February 27th, the night and morning she went missing.
And I was like, I don't ever remember her saying anything to me about a Mario,
Bonnie may not remember anything about a Mario, but I sure do. Only because I remember that from looking at Greg's cocaine arrests. And what do you think the name of his supplier was? Mario. No, he may have a brother named Mario. Greg may. I have to look into that. But initially, his drug dealer was the first name that popped into my mind.
So I thought that was really strange, the whole situation there. And then it was less than 2 weeks later, she was gone.
Okay.
I had talked to her a couple nights. I think I talked to her that Saturday night before the Tuesday. We talked for like 45 minutes. And one thing she told me about why she was taking the job was because Greg's friend Carl's girlfriend worked there. And she had to leave town. And he needed a bartender. He had nobody.
Okay.
And that's why she was taking the job. But she wasn't comfortable about it. I just remember that. That always, if that was something that bothered me. If I would have went to work there with her, that would have never happened,
Sure. I understand that. When this happened, so she disappears on the 26th going into the morning of the 27th. When did you find out about it?
Well,
Like that week?
I did not find out about it until I think it was actually the 28th, and I think Tom called me because she didn't pick up the kids.
Okay. And what was that conversation like?
Do I know where she is? Did she say anything to me about what else she was going to do? And I'm like, no, she was working. I knew she was going to work. I said, I don't think she had any other jobs the next day. And that's like they said she was supposed to work the next day.
Yeah.
I don't remember her ever telling me she was working the next day.
Okay.
But, yeah, and then I found it odd that it wasn't until that Saturday that Greg called me and asked me if I'd seen her. I don't even know how he got my phone number. You know what I mean? Like I said, I wasn't friends with him. So it was kind of weird, And that conversation was just, well, if you see her, tell her to call me.
Like he was mad?
Yeah. Like, I don't know where, we were going to go out this weekend for her birthday. And he said, I just, I don't know what she ended up doing.
Okay, so she disappears. That next week is when things kind of kick off with the police. At least they bring in a helicopter and some bloodhounds. But then it kind of stalls again, and nothing ever really takes place. What's happening within that next week time frame with you? I mean, I'm
Well,
sure you're just racking your brain continuously trying to figure out what's going on.
at that point, we're thinking maybe she did just take off for the weekend.
Okay.
You know, maybe she just decided, you know what, I'm going somewhere for my birthday. Maybe somebody said to her, well, I'll take you to Florida. Who knew? You know, it was like so many things running through your head. Not that I thought she would. The big thing was she had made plans with her kids, and she never, you know, stood her kids up unless something really come up, like her vehicle broke down or something like that. And she had already, you know, to my knowledge, told her kids, you know, we're going to do something. And she had made, like I said, made plan. I thought Greg was taking her out, you know.
Mhm.
Sounded to me like they had a weekend planned. And everybody was just like, oh, she'll come back, you know. And I wanted to think that, of course.
But at some
I
point, reality
was
set in.
frustrated because the cops wouldn't do anything right away. You know, like, why aren't you at that bar trying to figure out what went on? You know, her car was there, just all the weird things. And to me, I felt they got there too late. They had no evidence because people were in and out of there.
When the police did talk to you, did they talk to you relatively close to February 26th, March 1st time frame, or was it years later?
Oh, it was around that time. Yeah, I spoke with. Well, I kind of got on the bandwagon with Iris. You know, her and I became detectives. You know, we were the ones that got the missing posters out. We were the ones that got it out to the public that, you know, if anybody saw anything, anybody heard anything. And of course, I'm sure you know from what you do, there's people that, oh, I saw her over here, I saw her there. So whenever things like that would come up, Iris and I were the ones, like, we'd go to Altoona. There was a sighting of her, they thought, at the bus station. So Iris and I would get to go to the bus, you know, we'd go there and we'd talk to whoever thought they saw her or whoever worked there, you know. We were the ones that were doing a lot of legwork like that because the cops wouldn't do anything.
What was their tone to you when you talked to them? Was it? I mean, what was their like theory? Did they give you any inclination of the route they were going?
No.
Okay.
No, they were very tight-lipped. They kind of made it seem like, well, she was just a young girl. She just took off, you know.
Right.
And we kept driving at home. She wouldn't leave her kids.
Keeps coming back to the kids. She was a good mother. She wouldn't leave the kids. As much as Todd, Iris, Bonnie, in the back of their brain, maybe, you know, they're trying to make sense. Maybe she left for the weekend. Maybe, but they know. They know she didn't. She was abducted or she was killed at that bar. That's the only scenarios that I'm seeing right now. Of course, I'm going to look at the other. But they're making it very adamant that she did not just take off to start a new life.
You know, her whole goal was, for what she was doing, was to get a place where she could get her kids and they could stay with her full time. You know, that is what she wanted.
Right. You had mentioned Carl. So everyone I've talked to wants to bring up the name Carl.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet Carl?
No.
Okay.
The only thing I knew about Carl was he owned a couple bars in State College.
Okay.
You know, and again, I didn't know anything about him till after the fact.
But the only thing that you really knew was that Greg was friends with Carl.
Yes, and that's how she got involved in working at that bar.
Okay. Now, I want to preface this next question. I ask a lot of people this, and I want you to be very honest with me because I know it's going to be in your nature as Brenda's best friend is to protect her. And I get that and I understand that. But I need to know some truths about her in order to investigate this properly. And one of the questions I have to ask is if Greg, as we know many years later, is arrested for selling large amounts of cocaine, and then me speaking with Todd the other night and him telling me he found a tray underneath a seat there at Greg's place when him and Brenda, where they lived in State College, which was probably for cocaine as well. Do you know her to be doing cocaine at this point in time?
Well, I figured a lot of the secrecy was because she was.
Okay.
Wasn't something her and I did, you know?
Okay.
And, you know, it wasn't habit that would be something that her and I would do together or anything. But I always had a suspicion there was more going on there with drugs than I knew about.
With her using?
Well, not, you know, I would say recreational use there. I knew about that. But I did not know how involved he was. You know, like what she was getting into with him. Because if I would have tried to get her out of it.
Right. Well, I believe in the first newspaper article, maybe it wasn't the first one, but relatively shortly after her disappearance, it's quoted in there that she had a cocaine and crack drug past.
Oh my God, no.
And I'm trying to figure out where that came from.
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay.
Because crack wasn't a big, you know what I mean? That was not something.
Right. But in Williamsport it is.
No, because not even like the long hours that we did working and this, and I know people can be doing drugs and you don't know it, but if she was a full-blown user, she would have never been able to do what she was doing, you know? And I was around her enough, I would have had to have seen it or seen the change in her, you know? And I wasn't seeing that. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think when she, was hanging out with him, and that might have been a little bit of the why she didn't tell me everything about him.
Sure. Yeah, that certainly makes sense to me. But I guess, this is in 1991. Greg is arrested, in 2006, 2016, whatever it is. I mean, a decade removed from this disappearance. Now, I worked narcotics for probably 10 years and undercover with the FBI as well. And I understand a lot about the narcotic business. And I have a hard time believing that Greg was selling large amounts of cocaine in 1991, because usually you have to progress, your empire, so to speak,
Right.
to you're getting up to ounces. But it's possible that he was dealing drugs and not just using. He obviously was using in 1991. So I had information that Greg used to make some girls deliver cocaine for him, and I'm wondering if you heard that at all either.
Well, like I said, I heard a lot after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. And it made me suspicious if that was what was going on with Brenda, But I never saw that. I
Okay.
never, like I said, I never went there. I never went to that gas station. Never hung out with him. Never. I think I was at his apartment or his place once, and that was after the fact when Iris and I went there to get her belongings.
What was your thoughts on that? On going to Greg's house to get her stuff. I mean, was he there?
I think I think there was another girl there. And he just come to the door and handed us a bag of stuff. Like, it wasn't even like that much stuff. It was just some clothes and a couple pair of boots and shoes and a hairbrush, you know. And that's what we were interested in, was like something to get her DNA off of. You know, at that time they wanted,
Sure.
you know, DNA in case, you know, all these missing bodies were turning up.
Right.
Or all these, you know, Jane Does, something to compare it to.
Well, you mentioned her boots. Let's talk about that because of the fact that her boots being found in the men's restroom. What's your take on that?
I was going to listen to your podcast before, because you had, when I listened to that before, I thought, you know, they made it like she had taken her boots because she had put other shoes on or whatever.
Right.
Those black boots that they found in that bathroom, those were the boots that she wore all the time, like sneakers to her. You know, that's what we wore back then. The only time I ever saw Brenda in a pair of sneakers was if we had to do a cleaning job where it required us to be, you know, on a ladder or something. I can't imagine her tending bar in sneakers. So if those boots come off, they either come off to put on a different pair of boots, like she was, you know, if she was going somewhere, or those were her work boots and she put on dress boots to hang out or something. But to me, that really isn't that unusual. I think she probably went in there to change. Now, I can't remember the layout of the bar, if the men's room was closer to, you know, like it had changed too after years, you know, I don't remember, but I'm thinking she probably went in there to change it when she was done working.
Just change into like sneakers or something? Or another pair of boots? Okay. Okay. It's good to know.
There was one thing that happened. They said they found blood on a paper towel in the bathroom.